Chapter 1. When Luciana married Victor, she was 22, and he was 32. He wasn't just older, he was bigger in every way. For 3 years of marriage, he gave her endless tenderness. Whatever she wanted, he gave. If she asked for the stars, he'd reach for the stars. If she wanted the moon, he'd bring her the moon. He spoiled her like a treasure. His beloved. The only thing he took without restraint was her body. Every night, without fail, so much so that every time she cried and begged him to stop, he would only smile and continue, refusing to let her go. She knew he had a lot of money, and a lot of love, both belonged solely to her. Until the day her father passed away, she called him 99 times. He declined every call. The next second, she received a photo from her best friend. "Lucy, is this your old man? I saw him hugging a woman on a street in Paris." She opened the photo. The man was Victor. The woman was her aunt. On the 3rd day after her father's death, Victor finally came home. He opened the door to see Luciana curled up on the sofa, eyes red and swollen, body thin and fragile. His guilt overwhelmed him. He rushed over and pulled her into his arms. "Lucy, I flew to Paris for a meeting on short notice. I missed your calls because of the time difference. I'm sorry I couldn't attend the funeral with you. It's my fault. Tell me how I can make it up to you. Anything you want, I'll give it." Luciana listened in silence. Her face was like still water, calm and void. She didn't say a word. She simply pulled 2 documents from her bag, flipped them to the last page, and handed them to him. "Old man, I want these 2 things. Sign them." Victor breathed a sigh of relief and quickly signed both without hesitation. Seeing how little he hesitated, Luciana's eyes turned red. "You're not even going to look at them? What if I asked for something expensive?" Victor held her tightly. "Lucy, we're married. What's mine is yours. And when the baby is born, it'll belong to you and the baby. You can have anything, okay?" He bent down to listen to the baby in her belly. "Is today your prenatal checkup? Is the baby kicking? Let me come with you." Luciana said nothing. No, yes. No, no. Victor took her silence as consent and helped her into the car. On the road, the air inside the vehicle was heavy and silent. Victor tried to break the tension, but just then his phone rang. "Victor, I'm back in the country. I want to see you." Luciana clearly heard the voice on the other end. It was Zoe. Her fingers clenched unconsciously. The next moment, she saw Victor hang up. "Lucy, I've got some work to deal with. Can you go to the checkup by yourself?" Luciana didn't expose his lie. She just opened the door and got out of the car. In the bleak wind, she flagged down a cab. The city flew by outside the window, and with it, the past flooded her mind. Years ago, she had been in a car accident. The driver fled, and bystanders, afraid of getting involved, left her dying in a pool of blood. Victor had passed by and picked her up like a godsend. That day, she fell in love with the man 10 years her senior at first sight. Luckily for her, this calm, mature man liked her too. They dated for a year before getting married. Maybe it was because he was older, he seemed to have endless patience. They never argued. Every gift, every anniversary, he never missed a single one. In daily life, he was always thoughtful, except in bed. She never understood why. Even at 30, his stamina was still insane. Many nights, he pushed her to tears, whimpering and begging him to stop. He would only laugh and kiss her again and again. "My silly girl, I love you. That's why. The more we do it, baby, the sooner we can make a little baby." So her belly swelled, again and again, and finally, in their 3rd year, she became pregnant. 3 days ago, her father suffered a stroke. She rushed to his side, only to hear him repeating Victor's name, asking when his son-in-law would arrive. Everyone knew he wanted to entrust his daughter to Victor before his time ran out. They all tried to contact him. Luciana called until her phone shut down from overheating, but no one could reach him. Her father passed, filled with regret and unspoken wishes. Luciana thought he must have been busy, until, right after she completed her father's funeral, she received that photo from her friend. She couldn't understand, why was her husband embracing her aunt? Her mind spinning, she finally mustered the courage to enter the one room Victor never allowed her into, his study. The moment she opened the door, She felt like she had plunged into ice. The room was filled with things about her aunt. Photos covering the walls, carefully preserved love letters, gifts never given, and a thick diary, still being written. From that diary, Luciana learned everything. Victor had only ever loved two women. One was her. The other was Zoe. They had been college sweethearts. Their love had lasted 10 years, passionate and consuming. At their peak, he crossed the Atlantic with her, trekked the Amazon jungle, kissed her beneath the snowy peaks of the Andes. At their worst, he smashed millions worth of jewelry in rage, begged her to return after their breakup, and drank himself into a bleeding stomach when she started dating someone new. Every joy and sorrow of his past life had revolved around Zoe, and the reason he married Luciana was simply because she looked like Zoe. He had orchestrated the hit-and-run accident to make her fall for him at first sight. He had seduced her night after night, just to get her pregnant. But he didn't want her child. He wanted a child that looked like Zoe. The truth shattered her. The love was fake. The tenderness was fake. Even his heart, it was all a lie. He had deceived her completely. She may have been young, but she knew only a clean heart can welcome someone new. And she was never someone's replacement. She was Luciana, unique and irreplaceable. But from the very beginning, he had lied. So, as a courtesy, she lied once. 2. Just now, she hadn't told him what he'd signed. One was a divorce agreement. The other, a consent form for abortion. She would never keep a child meant to resemble someone else. A man who didn't have her in his heart was not a man she wanted. Luciana walked into the hospital and handed the form to her OBGYN. Hello, I want to terminate this pregnancy. Chapter 2. 3 hours later, Luciana returned home clutching her aching stomach. After a day of rest, she stared at her pale reflection in the mirror and, with trembling hands, picked up a lipstick. She applied light makeup, her face gradually regaining some color, but beneath it all, her body was still drenched in cold sweat from the pain. Wrapped in a blanket, she lay on the sofa and called for the housekeeper. Take all the jewelry and designer bags in the display case, pack them up, and send them to the auction house. Donate all the proceeds to schools in poor mountain areas. Victor happened to walk in just as she said this and froze in place. Lucy, why do you suddenly want to sell those things? Luciana lowered her eyes, avoiding his gaze. I don't like them anymore. Let's call it good karma, for the baby. Thankfully, Victor didn't read too much into it. He walked over and held her gently. That's fine. In a few days, I'll take you to the next auction. You can pick out whatever you like, and we'll slowly fill the display case again. All right? His tone was indulgent, like coaxing a child. Luciana didn't respond, she simply changed the subject. You're done with work? Yes. I know things have been hard for you lately. I'm staying home this whole week to be with you and the baby. Okay? As he spoke, he reached out to touch her belly, but she quickly stopped him. He looked down and noticed she seemed thinner. His brow furrowed slightly. Just as he was about to ask, Luciana's phone rang. Seeing the screen display old man, she picked up. Lucy, your aunt returned to the country yesterday. The family's getting together at the old house for dinner. Are you coming? I'm not feeling well. I think I'll. Before she could finish, Victor snatched the phone from her hand. We'll be there on time. Luciana's heart clenched when she saw how eager he was to agree. She couldn't help but remember those 99 missed calls on the day her father died. It hit her again. When a man truly loves someone, he'll seize every chance to see them. He won't care about your feelings, won't care that you're grieving your father. He'll follow only the desire in his heart. After hanging up, Victor noticed the expression on her face and realized he might have been too hasty. He took her cold hand and tried to explain. Lucy, I know you're upset, but you're still carrying a child. You can't let yourself sink into sorrow. Let me take you to the old house. Seeing family might lift your spirits. Luciana forced a smile but said nothing. At 7 p.m., the two arrived at the old family home on time. Before going in, Victor handed her a wrapped box. Your old man said you haven't seen your aunt in years. It's best to be polite. Once, she would have thought he was thoughtful and considerate. Now, she knew this gift wasn't from her. It was from him. Passed through her hand to the woman he truly cared about. She didn't call him out. She simply stepped into the lively hall. The moment they entered, Zoe, chatting with relatives, turned her head. She saw Luciana and Victor holding her hand. Zoe froze briefly, then hesitated before speaking. Lucy, this is... Luciana said nothing. She didn't know what to say. Victor also kept silent, but the relatives eagerly filled in the gap. Zoe, you've been abroad for 3 years, so of course you didn't make it to the wedding. That's Lucy's husband, Victor, president of the Sun Group. Zoe swayed slightly, her eyes flashing with shock, but she quickly recovered, extending her hand gracefully. They exchanged pleasantries like two strangers meeting for the first time. Only Luciana could sense the subtle, unspoken energy between them, unseen, yet surging. She handed the gift to Zoe with a flat tone. Auntie, welcome back. I'm only here for a month, Zoe replied, smiling as she unwrapped the gift. Then I'll be heading back to Paris. Victor's expression clearly darkened. Zoe ignored it, smiling as she opened the box. Inside was a dazzling gemstone necklace. Her eyes gleamed with appreciation. Lucy, you have such good taste. I've been eyeing this necklace for a long time. Luciana caught the flicker of emotion in both their faces and replied indifferently. He picked it. He's always had good taste. During dinner, Victor barely ate. He either drank or fussed over Luciana, piling food into her bowl. The relatives looked on with doting smiles, joking among themselves. Lucy's so lucky. What a devoted husband. Look how sweet they are. Luciana barely smiled. She stared at the lamb and beef in her bowl without moving her chopsticks. Ever since getting pregnant, she couldn't stand the smell of meat. She'd been eating only vegetables for a month. Victor knew this. He had sat with her and eaten nothing but greens, day after day. But tonight, he'd completely forgotten, because he was too busy switching plates, moving all the seafood to Zoe's side of the table. Her aunt had always loved seafood since she was a child. Chapter 3. After dinner, Victor was completely drunk. Relatives, worried about them driving home in that state, insisted they stay overnight. Luciana called for a maid and helped him to the guest room. After washing up, she turned off the main light, leaving only the bedside lamp glowing softly. It wasn't long before Victor stirred groggily. Eyes barely open, he reached for her and pulled her into his arms, murmuring, Zoe, you came back for me, didn't you? Luciana froze, her entire body going rigid. She didn't correct him. She let the silence hang in the air before finally asking, And you? Who did you get drunk for tonight? For you, Zoe. It's always been you. Don't you understand? Even though she had already guessed the answer, hearing it from his own mouth made her chest ache unbearably. Now she understood why the man who once claimed to be a teetotaler suddenly drank to excess. He was afraid that in his drunken state, his true feelings would slip out, just as they had now. Clenching her fists tightly, unable to breathe, she pried herself out of his embrace. She locked herself in the bathroom and sat there for 2 hours, forcing her emotions to settle. When she finally emerged, the bed was empty. Luciana opened the door quietly and noticed the balcony light had flicked off. Without a sound, she crept over and looked out through the glass. Victor was on the balcony with Zoe. The night veiled his expression, but she could clearly hear the tension in his voice. You told me yesterday you weren't going back to Europe. Why did you change your mind? And you? Zoe asked calmly. Why didn't you tell me you married Lucy? Victor's frustration boiled over. What little reason he had left collapsed. He grabbed Zoe's hand tightly. Why did I marry her? Isn't it obvious? She looks so much like you. She's your blood. Only by being with her could I see you openly. I didn't have to stand under your window in Paris for days just to sneak a glimpse. So he had gone to Paris for Zoe. That's why he hadn't answered any of her 99 calls. Luciana's body trembled violently. Her nails dug into her palms. Even Zoe seemed stunned. She whispered, You're insane. I am. From the moment you insisted we break up, I went insane. Can't you see that? I just wanted you by my side, even if it meant being with someone who only looks like you. That was enough for me to remember you for the rest of my life. His voice, filled with unbearable pain, left Zoe speechless. After a long silence, she finally choked out a question, her voice heavy with emotion. Victor, what does that make Lucy? Then? You've been married for 3 years. She's carrying your child. You've never had any real feelings for her? Victor laughed bitterly. Zoe, she's just a substitute. How could I fall for her? Even if I did. It was only because her face reminded me of you. Every time I look at her, all I think about is you. Our baby is almost here. I even picked a name, Zackson. Your name and mine. We'll be together forever. Luciana felt ice creep over her skin. Zackson. What a name. She closed her eyes, remembering his relentless hunger in bed after they married. How nervous he was after she became pregnant. She bit down hard on her lip, swallowing the screams clawing up her throat. Every ounce of strength drained from her body. She leaned against the wall, her steps unstable as she turned away. The arguing behind her faded. Just before she shut the door, she heard Zoe speak. Aren't you afraid Lucy will find out the truth? Victor replied. She never will, and even if she does, she loves me too much to leave. Too much to leave? Luciana touched her now flat belly, a bitter smile curling her lips. Oh, she would. She would crush the cage he'd built for her with her own hands and fly free, never looking back. That night, Victor never returned. At dawn, Luciana rose early. She didn't disturb anyone. Alone. She went home, collected her documents, and applied for immigration. As soon as she finished, her phone rang. It was Zoe. Lucy, could you come with me to the cemetery today? I want to pay respects to your father and visit my sister's grave too. Luciana's mother had passed away when she was young, and she had little contact with her maternal side of the family. She and Zoe, only 5 years apart, had never been close. Still, Zoe wanted to visit her parents' graves. Luciana could only agree. She bought a bouquet of flowers. As she arrived at the cemetery gate, she saw a luxury sports car parked nearby. It was Victor. He saw her too, and immediately got out and walked up. Why didn't you tell me you were coming to the cemetery? I could have come with you. Chapter 4. Luciana looked straight at Victor. You left in the middle of the night, didn't you? Old man. I never said I was coming to the cemetery. How did you know I'd be here? Victor took her hand. My stomach felt uncomfortable last night when I saw you were in the bathroom. I went to the hospital alone. This morning, I heard your aunt mention she was going with you to visit your father. So I came along. A near-perfect lie. Luciana let out a soft and said nothing more. At the cemetery, when she saw her parents' graves side by side, an ache surged through her chest. The two people who had loved her most in this world, gone. Seeing the tears well in her eyes, Zoe stepped forward and gently patted her shoulder. Lucy, even though your parents are gone, you still have Victor. He'll take care of you forever. And your baby's on the way. You'll have your own little family soon. She spoke with certainty, as if she already declared that Luciana and Victor's marriage was permanent. Right on cue, Victor added, Yes, I'll take care of you and the baby. Don't be sad. Luciana could only find irony in his words. His promise to take care of her wasn't rooted in love or responsibility. It was just to satisfy another woman and his selfish, hidden desires. Swallowing her emotions, Luciana looked up at the photo of her parents. Yes, I'll have a new family, but it would have nothing to do with Victor. After the visit, a light rain began to fall. Zoe and Luciana sat in the back seat while Victor drove. Sensing the heavy silence, Zoe broke the tension. I heard there's a new Western restaurant on the south side of the city. Want to check it out for lunch? Victor immediately changed lanes. I heard the owner's Italian. The food's supposed to be authentic. Really? The pizza I had in Paris. And just like that, the two of them launched into an effortless conversation from Western cuisine to Scandinavian architecture, and eventually to their recent travels. No matter what one said, the other picked it up easily. Not a single awkward pause. Their chemistry was seamless, like a couple who'd been together for years, sharing every detail of life. Luciana couldn't help but laugh at the thought. They had been together for years. The places they'd traveled, the things they'd done for each other, the depth of familiarity. None of it was something she, the stand-in, could ever match. At the restaurant, Victor habitually handed the menu to Zoe. She was just about to flip it open, then paused, and passed it to Luciana instead. You're pregnant, you must have dietary restrictions. Lucy, you order. Luciana ordered a few dishes at random, but once the food arrived, Victor frowned. You can't eat any of this. Did you forget what the doctor said? Zoe turned to glance at Luciana's belly, a trace of surprise flashing in her eyes. Lucy, aren't you 4 months along? Your belly doesn't look like it. Victor immediately stood up, walking toward Luciana to take a closer look, only to bump into a waiter carrying a tray. The cart tipped over, spilling hot dishes everywhere. Victor instinctively threw himself in front of Zoe, shielding her from the steaming soup and cold platters. Luciana wasn't as lucky. Scalding hot soup splashed over her legs, instantly blistering her skin. She clenched her face in pain, cold sweat beading on her forehead. Steam rose from her lap as she grabbed the tablecloth, only to see Victor running off, carrying Zoe in his arms. Her heart plummeted into an abyss. The restaurant erupted into chaos. A waiter rushed over and helped Luciana to a safer spot. As soon as she stepped outside, she heard raised voices. Victor and Zoe were arguing. I told you. I'm fine. You should be with Lucy right now. Your hand is red. Why are you pretending you're okay? I'll take you to the hospital. Then I'll go back for her. Zoe, why are you being so stubborn? You were so worried about me just now. You're still not over me. Are you? So what if I am? So what if I'm not? Victor, we're already over. You're married to Lucy, and she's carrying your child. Zoe's anguished outburst brought tears to Victor's eyes. You know she'll never be as important to me as you. Zoe was stunned for a moment. She was just about to reply when she looked up and saw Luciana. Her pupils shrank, and her voice trembled with panic for the first time. Lucy, why are you out here? Chapter 5. Victor's heart jolted violently. He spun around just in time to see Luciana collapse to the ground, her face pale as paper. He rushed forward, scooping her into his arms, and raced to the hospital. Amid the chaos and noise, Luciana fought through the pain to open her eyes. She heard Victor speaking urgently to the doctors. My wife is pregnant, 4 months along. Please be careful with any medication you use. As she was wheeled into the treatment room, the nurse lifted her gown and paused. 4 months? That can't be right. She doesn't even look pregnant. She turned back, ready to confirm with the doctor. But Luciana, enduring the searing pain, stopped her. Nurse, I already lost the baby. Please keep it a secret. I want to tell my husband myself. Though surprised, the nurse respected her wishes. After all, a miscarriage was a painful matter, especially between spouses. Without anesthesia, the wound cleaning and dressing were nearly unbearable. Luciana was on the verge of blacking out from the burning, nerve-wracking pain. Sweat soaked her entire body. Every second felt like a form of torture. Once the treatment was over, she was transferred to a hospital room. Victor stayed beside her, remorse thick in his voice. Lucy, your burns are so serious. Why didn't you call for me? Her jaw, clenched too long in pain, ached with fatigue. Her legs felt as if they were on fire. Her body temperature kept climbing. She could barely speak, but forced out. You ran too fast. It's my fault. I'm sorry. Victor's guilt deepened. He slipped his hand into hers. Her sharp nails cut into his skin, drawing blood. She looked at their hands, at the mingling of blood, and her consciousness faded. Slowly, she drifted into sleep. When she woke again, it was already deep into the night. Luciana opened her eyes groggily and saw Zoe's back. You're injured too. Go get your burns treated. I'll take care of Lucy. No, I'm afraid she'll wake up and be upset not seeing me. I'll do it tomorrow. Zoe's voice suddenly rose in pitch. I said go. Victor, stop using your body as a joke. At those words, Victor's furrowed brow relaxed instantly. He grabbed Zoe's hand. Zoe, stop denying it. You still care about me, don't you? Admit it, and I'll give up everything. Let's get back together. Please. Zoe realized too late what she'd said and quickly pulled her hand away. Seeing her flustered reaction, Victor chuckled. All right, I won't pressure you. I've got all the time in the world to wait for you. I'll go treat the wound now, just like you said. Then he left, light-footed and practically humming. In all their 3 years together, Luciana had only known Victor as a man who was always in control. Even when she was furious or joking too far, he'd soothe her with the patience of an adult humoring a child. He was always composed, calm, emotionally reserved, like he wore a mask that never slipped. She thought that was just his nature, but now she realized he could lose control. He could burn with rage at Zoe's coldness. He could beam like a giddy boy when he sensed she cared. He could obey her every word like an infatuated teenager. Luciana had never seen this version of Victor. It left her dazed. When she came back to herself, she met Zoe's gaze. For a second, she saw panic flicker in her aunt's eyes. Luciana spoke first. "Auntie, where's Victor?" Zoe, relieved that Luciana hadn't heard their earlier conversation, answered smoothly. "He went to get his burn treated." "Are you feeling unwell? Tell me if anything hurts." Luciana's body still screamed with pain, but she swallowed it and shook her head. "I'm fine. You should get some rest." Zoe didn't leave. She poured a glass of water and handed it to her. After a few more words of concern, she asked, "Lucy, before you passed out yesterday, did you hear anything?" Luciana froze for a second, then met her gaze directly. "No, I didn't hear anything." A calm lie, to ease Zoe's doubts, and to remind herself, forget those words, because soon, she would be gone from their lives. For good. Chapter 6. After staying in the hospital for 10 days, Luciana's wound had scabbed over. During that time, Victor stayed by her side every day, serving tea, fetching water, changing dressings, taking care of everything in meticulous detail. She gradually recovered, but he fell ill instead, running a fever for several days. With 2 patients in the house, Zoe came over to help. She drove them both home, kept an eye on the kitchen while brewing medicine, and helped Luciana with her bandages, running back and forth without a break. "Focus on healing. The prenatal medicine will be ready soon. Make sure you drink it." Luciana agreed, but when the medicine was brought up, she didn't take a single sip. Instead, she dumped it all into the toilet. After a few days of rest, she could finally manage to walk. Carrying the empty bowl, she headed downstairs to get some sun. As she passed by the study, she heard something shatter inside. The door was slightly ajar. Luciana glanced in and saw Zoe. She was staring blankly at the photos on the wall, her hands trembling at her sides, a mix of emotions on her face. After a while, she snapped out of it, tore the photos down, and started throwing everything from the cabinets into a box. Seeing her about to come out, Luciana quickly hid on the balcony at the end of the hallway. Soon, Zoe appeared in front of the trash bin at the door. She threw all the gifts in, and shredded the photos, love letters, and the diary into pieces. After finishing, she made a phone call and called Victor downstairs. The 2 of them got into a heated argument over the items in the trash. Luciana, too far away to catch everything, only managed to hear the last few lines. "These things shouldn't be in the study. What if one day Lucy goes in and sees them? She doesn't have a key to the study and wouldn't enter without my permission." "You're that confident? What if she does? Have you considered how heartbroken she'd be? Someone who loves you so much." "So what if she's heartbroken? Will that change the fact that the one I've always loved is you?" "Zoe, forget everyone else. I'll ask you just once, do you still have any feelings for me? If you say yes, I'll divorce her immediately." Upon hearing this, Zoe's expression changed drastically. In a panic, she hailed a car and left. Watching the 2 part in anger, Luciana quietly lifted her hand and pressed it to her chest. Her heartbeat had sped up, as if it might burst from her ribcage. It tingled a bit, but didn't hurt as much. It seemed that the wounds in her heart were beginning to heal too. That was nice. Downstairs, Victor dug through the trash and retrieved the things Zoe had thrown away, then took them back to the study. He locked the door and didn't come out for 3 days and nights. Luciana knew he was piecing the fragments back together, so she didn't disturb him, only made sure meals were delivered on time. Once her legs were fully functional again, Luciana met up with some friends for a few meals and small gatherings. After one dinner, she went to pay the bill. On her way past the largest private room, she overheard a familiar name. "Victor, you're always so busy. We didn't think you'd come to a class reunion, so we didn't invite you. Hope you don't mind." "What are you saying? Zoe's here. Why would Victor miss it?" "Back in college, those 2 caused quite the stir at S University." "You didn't know?" "How could I not? I witnessed Victor confessing to her on the school field with tens of thousands of roses. I can still hum the songs he wrote for Zoe. Luciana stood there quietly, listening. In her mind, the image of Victor in a suit, strumming a guitar and confessing his love, slowly surfaced. But no matter how she imagined it, something felt deeply off. She thought about it for a moment before realizing what was wrong. The people in the room were describing the Victor of 20 years old, the one who loved Zoe. It had absolutely nothing to do with her. Of course it felt out of place. Chapter 7. Luciana smiled silently, having no desire to keep listening. As she turned around, she suddenly saw Zoe stepping out of the restroom. Her eyelid twitched. Instinctively, Luciana turned and headed toward the stairs to avoid her. She had barely taken a few steps when Zoe's hesitant voice called out, "Lucy?" Luciana ignored her and quickened her pace. Just as she was about to turn the corner, Zoe caught up and grabbed her hand. Luciana didn't want to run into her here and tried to leave, but Zoe refused to let go. Her tone anxious. "I know it's you. Did you misunderstand something? Please, let me explain." As the two struggled, Luciana yanked her arm free with force, but she pulled too hard, her body swayed, and she nearly fell down the stairs. Zoe's expression changed instantly. She reached out and caught her just in time. Luciana managed to steady herself against the railing, but Zoe lost her balance and tumbled down the stairs, ending up in a pool of blood. A loud crash echoed in Luciana's head. She rushed down to help. Just as she reached out her hand, a violent force slammed her to the ground. Her forehead struck the corner of the wall, and blood gushed out, quickly covering her face. She gasped in pain, forced her eyes open, and saw Victor staring at her with a murderous glare. He gritted his teeth and left one sentence behind before scooping Zoe up and dashing out like a madman. "If anything happens to Zoe today, I'll make you pay back tenfold." The sound of hurried footsteps faded away. Luciana could no longer hear anything. Her vision blurred. A sharp, pulling pain throbbed in her head. The blood pooled more and more, and her consciousness drifted. Darkness engulfed her completely, and she felt weightless as everything slipped away. It wasn't clear how much time had passed when Luciana slowly opened her eyes to see a doctor sigh in relief. "Good thing your willpower is strong. Otherwise, you might have ended up in a vegetative state, never waking up again." She thanked the doctor and reached for her constantly vibrating phone on the table. The moment she answered, Victor's anxious voice came through. "Lucy, where are you?" Luciana remained silent for a long while before giving him the hospital and room number. 10 minutes later, the door to the hospital room was flung open. Victor rushed in, panic all over his face. The first thing he did was ask about her condition. "Is the injury serious? What about the baby? Are you both okay?" "I only got so angry because I thought you pushed your aunt. I'm sorry. It was my fault. I shouldn't have hit you without knowing the full story. Please forgive me." From his words, Luciana gathered that Zoe must have regained consciousness and explained everything to him. Otherwise, he wouldn't look so guilty and uneasy. She lowered her gaze and weakly responded to his question. "I'm fine. The doctor said I just need a few days of rest." Victor assumed that "I'm fine" included the baby and finally breathed a sigh of relief. He crouched down, reaching out to touch her belly for reassurance. But Luciana stopped him with a single question. "You and my aunt, were you college classmates?" Victor froze, his hand hovering midair. "Yeah, same university, different majors." "Why?" Watching him awkwardly withdraw his hand, Luciana's eyelashes trembled slightly. She replied calmly, "Nothing, just saw you both at the same class reunion." Victor's throat bobbed as he tried to shift the subject. "You must be hungry. I'll go get you breakfast." Watching him flee the room in panic, Luciana opened her calendar and counted the days. Only 10 left. 10 days until the divorce cooling-off period ended. Soon, she would finally be free from this marriage built entirely on lies. Chapter 8. During the week or so in the hospital, Victor didn't visit as frequently as last time. Instead, he came by every few days. Luciana knew he had to go back and forth to take care of Zoe, so she didn't show any dissatisfaction. On the day she was discharged, he did come to pick her up in person, but the moment they reached the front door, he left in a hurry again. As she watched his car disappear from sight, Luciana received a call from the immigration office, informing her that the paperwork was ready. She retrieved her documents and proceeded to cancel her household registration and ID card. After all this was done, She returned home and began packing her belongings. During the process, she came across a lot of items they had bought as a couple, matching products, photos, clothes and toys for the baby. She threw all of it away. As she was tossing everything out, Victor happened to return, bringing a trunk full of luxury handbags. He quickly walked over, eager to show her the bags. But when his eyes caught the contents of the trash can, his expression darkened. "Baby, are you still mad at me? Is that why you threw all this away? I bought you so many bags. Can we just forget the unpleasant stuff from before?" If forgetting was really that easy, Luciana wouldn't have been in pain for so long. She looked at the pile of gift boxes stacked like a small mountain and spoke, her voice weary. "I'm not mad, and I don't need the gifts." Seeing this unfamiliar attitude, Victor grabbed her hand. "What's going on with you lately? Did I not do something right? Just tell me, can we talk it out?" Luciana had no words for him. She simply remained silent. Victor's brow furrowed deeper and deeper. Just as he was about to keep pressing, her phone rang. "Lucy, come to the hospital right away. Your aunt suddenly passed out. The doctor said it's acute kidney failure." Hearing this beside her, Victor instantly broke down, all reason vanishing, all color drained from his face, and he trembled uncontrollably. Seeing that he was too panicked to drive safely, Luciana quickly took the car keys and brought him to the hospital herself. At the hospital, the Chan family was all there, young and old, getting tested for a kidney match. Doctors moved busily as they murmured, "She's only 27, so young to have this kind of illness. Doesn't seem like they have many family members. The odds of a match are extremely low." Victor's hand shook violently, veins bulging on his forehead. He looked at the unconscious Zoe on the hospital bed, then turned and grabbed Luciana's shoulders, panic in his voice. "Lucy, go get tested too." Luciana's old man was stunned when he heard that and quickly stopped them. "No way. Lucy is pregnant. She can't go through testing." But Victor insisted on taking her. Luciana couldn't bear it anymore. She shook off his hand and lifted her head to stare at him. "What if I'm a match? What happens to the baby?" Victor went blank for a moment and blurted out what was truly on his mind. "Saving her comes first. Lucy, you're still young. We can have another baby. She's your aunt, your mother's own sister. How can you just watch her die?" At those words, Luciana's eyes immediately turned red. A moment later, she lowered her head and laughed. Suddenly, she felt a sense of relief for having terminated the pregnancy. She didn't ask anything else and walked into the testing room. She wasn't doing it to save his lover. She was doing it to save her aunt. Chapter 9. 3 days later, the test results came back. The bad news, no one in the Chan family was a compatible match. The good news, a suitable donor had been found and had agreed to donate. When Luciana heard, she tried calling Victor. He didn't answer. She figured he was probably busy, searching day and night for a donor. So instead, she decided to go to his office in person. Just as she reached the door, she heard raised voices inside. "Victor, are you really going to donate your kidney to Zoe? You're married to her niece now. Lucy is even carrying your child. It's time to move on and cherish what you have." "Exactly. Have you thought about the risks? About Lucy? About your unborn baby? Can't you put them first for once?" "Victor, donating a kidney to Zoe?" Luciana froze. Her mind went blank. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. Then came Victor's voice, calm, resolute, and without hesitation. "Don't try to stop me. I've already made up my mind. Even if it weren't just a kidney, even if it were my heart, I'd give it if it meant saving Zoe. And Lucy, she can't know. Tell her I left for a business trip in Europe. Help me keep it from her." Luciana's hand, raised to knock, slowly fell to her side as the words sank in. "Victor, you really are a hopeless simp. But don't worry, I'll disappear, completely. I sincerely wish you and Zoe a lifetime of happiness." She took a steady breath and turned around. Silently, that same night, she booked a one-way ticket to a city. The next morning, she got up early. The mandatory 1-month waiting period for the divorce had ended. She took a cab to the civil office, signed the final papers, and collected her divorce certificate. Then she bought a gift box and placed inside 2 things, the divorce certificate and her abortion report. Box in one hand, suitcase in the other, she headed to the hospital. Outside the VIP room, she saw Victor standing by the window, gazing at Zoe. His eyes were full of emotion, relief, tears, pain, and a deep, unwavering love. Luciana stood quietly behind him for a long time before speaking, her voice low and hoarse. "When's the surgery?" Victor turned, and the moment he saw her, all the emotion in his face vanished, replaced by his usual gentle smile. "In about 3 hours, but I'll be going away for a business trip. I might not be back for a month." "Lucy, I'm sorry I can't be here for you." This time, Luciana didn't expose the lie. She simply replied, "It's fine, old man. I'll get used to it." "Used to what?" Victor asked, confused by her words. Luciana didn't answer, but in her heart, she whispered, "Used to not being loved by you. Used to being ignored. Used to living without you." Before she could say anything else, the doctor called. Victor answered and began walking toward the elevator. Luciana stopped him and handed him the box. "Your birthday is in 2 weeks. Consider this an early gift." Victor didn't open it. He handed it casually to his assistant. "I'll open it on my birthday." Then, Luciana said nothing and watched him walk away. Then she turned and walked away too. While Victor was being prepped for surgery to give Zoe his kidney, Luciana headed to the airport with her suitcase. As anesthesia entered Victor's veins and the operation began, Luciana waited at the gate, deleting her social media, wiping her photo albums, and canceling her SIM card. By the time the surgery was over, her flight was already in the sky. She gazed out the window at the clouds, a faint smile curving her lips. "Victor, from this moment on, separated by mountains and seas, we will never meet again." Chapter 10. Victor was finally wheeled out of the operating room, drifting between consciousness and unconsciousness as he gradually came to from the anesthesia. The moment he woke up, he grabbed the doctor's sleeve, his voice urgent. "Doctor, how is Zoe?" The doctor, pulled down by his grip, quickly bent over and replied, "Her surgery was very successful, but she hasn't woken up yet. You don't need to worry too much." However, all Victor heard was that Zoe hadn't woken up. He immediately struggled to get out of bed, and a sharp, tearing pain surged through his body fresh from surgery. Ignoring the pain, he flung off the blanket and tried to get up. The doctor hurriedly held him back, sighing helplessly as he advised, "You just came out of surgery. You can't get out of bed yet." "No, I have to see her to feel at ease." Victor wouldn't listen to anything. He kept struggling to get up and walk. So the doctor, seeing that persuasion was useless, had no choice but to have a wheelchair brought in. The doctor wheeled Victor to Zoe's hospital room. Finally, Victor saw Zoe lying on the bed. She was still asleep, her face pale and exhausted, but she looked peaceful and unharmed. Only then did Victor finally exhale a breath of relief. His heart was gradually filled with a sense of fulfillment as he gazed at Zoe with tenderness in his eyes. "Zoe, even though we can't be together in this lifetime, I'm happy that from now on, a part of my body will always be with you. Doesn't that mean, in a way, we're together?" Victor stayed in Zoe's room all the way until evening. Only when it was time for dinner did he reluctantly leave and instruct his assistant to arrange a hospital transfer. He couldn't let Zoe know that he was the one who donated the kidney. Otherwise, Zoe would definitely be heartbroken. Just 2 days after Victor transferred to another hospital, Zoe woke up. Victor was even happier than Zoe. He called her every day, carefully reminding her of everything from her diet to how warm her bed was. But that day it rained, and Zoe went to sleep early. Only then did Victor suddenly remember Luciana, whom he had forgotten all this time. Luciana hadn't sent a single message these past few days. Normally, whenever Victor was away on business, Luciana would always bombard him with messages asking about his well-being. Sometimes she'd even call him to report what she was up to. But now, after all these days, he hadn't received even one text or call. Victor dialed Luciana's number, but the automated voice replied, "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." How could it be out of service? Unwilling to give up, Victor checked Luciana's Instagram only to find that he couldn't send her a message. It showed that the account had been deactivated and was no longer in use. A wave of panic surged in his chest. Victor quickly called the family butler. "Is Luciana home? Madam left 7 days ago and hasn't returned." "Didn't you know, young master?" What? 7 days ago. 7 days ago was the day of his surgery. The day he donated his kidney to Zoe. How could he have known? So Luciana left without a word. Could she have found out something? Victor felt a tightness in his chest, and his face turned even paler from the growing sense of panic. It felt like something important was slipping away from him forever. Chapter 11. Where could Luciana have gone? Victor pondered for a while and then called his assistant, a trace of barely concealed urgency in his voice. Go find Luciana's family. Ask them where she went. The assistant agreed, and Victor fell silent for a moment, trying to remember if Luciana had left anything behind. He racked his brain and suddenly recalled that Luciana had given him a box before she left. She had said it was an early birthday gift, given half a month in advance. That was odd. Why give it so early all of a sudden? Where had he put it? Victor remembered a vague image. He was preparing for surgery at the time and had no mental space for Luciana, so he had probably handed it off to his assistant without a second thought. Thinking of this, Victor quickly added, also, come to the hospital and bring that box Luciana gave me last time. As he looked out the window, Victor was filled with a strange sense of emptiness. He started to think back on Luciana's odd behavior in recent days. He remembered the day she threw everything into the trash right in front of him. Her attitude was cold. Her words even colder. I'm not mad. I don't need the gift either. Later, when he pressed her about it, Luciana just stayed silent. He had crouched down to touch her belly to make sure everything was okay. Luciana stopped him with just one sentence. You and my aunt were university classmates? Victor had awkwardly changed the subject then. Could it be that she had already known the truth at that point? But it was only a suspicion. Victor didn't think there was anything about himself worth doubting. He recalled the last time he saw her. He told her he was going on a business trip, and Luciana had just calmly replied, "It's okay, old man, I'll get used to it." Get used to what? Luciana didn't answer that time either. Thinking back now, Luciana really had been acting strange. A bad feeling settled heavily over him. Just then, the assistant arrived at the hospital with the box Victor had asked for. Victor took the small red box. Weighing it in his hands, it felt very light. Young master, I'm still looking into Madam's whereabouts, but I need more time. Find her as soon as possible. Without even lifting his head, Victor opened the red box in front of him. But what he saw inside left him stunned. It was divorce papers and a finalized divorce certificate. Victor nearly laughed in disbelief. He had no idea what kind of game Luciana was playing. She was a pregnant woman, and now she had pulled the stunt of running away from home and even left him a divorce certificate. There had to be a limit to this kind of sulking. But soon, he saw something at the bottom of the box that made his blood run cold, a notice of abortion surgery. He stared at the document in disbelief, realizing that the date on it was the same day Zoe came back. A wave of dizziness swept over him, and Victor fainted on the spot from sheer shock. Even as he lost consciousness, he couldn't believe it. Luciana had actually aborted their child. The assistant screamed in terror, calling for doctors and shouting Victor's name over and over again. Medical staff finally rushed in and wheeled Victor into the emergency room. Chapter 12. In the center of the airport, Luciana's plane had just landed in a city. The first thing she did after disembarking was instinctively take out her phone, intending to send a message to Victor. But then she suddenly remembered they were already divorced. They would never be in contact again. As soon as she opened Instagram, she saw a new friend request from an unfamiliar account. A wave of surreal emotion threatened to drown her. Luciana was once again reminded that it was real. She had truly divorced Victor, left him, and walked away from that massive lie. At that very moment, as she lifted her head, Luciana made a firm decision to start a new life in this new country. She took a taxi to the residence she had already booked from her home country. The landlady greeted her warmly, seeing that Luciana had come all the way from abroad by herself. She even specially invited her to join her family for dinner. Luciana didn't refuse. After tidying up carefully, she pulled out from her suitcase a few silk scarves and some fine tea she had brought from home as gifts. The landlady's family welcomed her with great enthusiasm. They had prepared for hours to receive her, paying attention to every detail, from the thoughtfully prepared dishes to the festive decorations. Streamers and signs adorned the walls, creating a cheerful atmosphere. The food on the table was rich and varied. There was freshly cooked, steaming pasta and a large chicken and bacon pizza topped with generous ingredients. They even considered that Luciana might not be used to local cuisine, so they also prepared soda, fried chicken with fries, and freshly made noodles. As a welcome gift, they gave her a soft and beautiful pink and white blanket. Throughout dinner, the landlady and her family were very kind and attentive, and told Luciana she was always welcome to dine with them. That evening, they talked for a long time, and the family patiently explained everything Luciana needed to know about living there. Even well into the night, they continued answering her questions patiently. At times, the language barrier caused a few amusing misunderstandings. Luciana couldn't help but smile, and sometimes even burst into laughter. It had been a long time since she had laughed so freely. The atmosphere that night was incredibly warm and harmonious, as if they weren't complete strangers from different countries, but old friends reunited. All the thoughtful care made Luciana feel a rare kind of warmth. So much so, she almost didn't want to leave. But when the family sat down to watch TV, she politely excused herself and went back to her place. Once there, Luciana washed up carefully and even took time to do her skincare routine. This kind of peace and comfort brought her a sense of relaxation she hadn't felt in ages. After showering, she collapsed onto the bed. She looked at the white ceiling, then around the small but tastefully decorated and cozy home. Her heart was filled with quiet contentment. Luciana closed her eyes and, suddenly, a thought surfaced. When would Victor realize she was gone? But probably, even if Victor found out, he'd be happy. After all, there would no longer be anything standing between him and his aunt. Besides, during those last few days, Luciana had already sensed that his aunt still had feelings for Victor. Especially since Victor had gone so far as to donate a kidney to her, his aunt must have been deeply moved. Who knows? Maybe Victor had already gotten what he wanted and was now with her. As she drifted into those thoughts, Luciana slowly fell asleep, and didn't wake until morning. Dreamless through the night. Chapter 13. Luciana had just arrived in a city and wasn't familiar with anything yet. On top of that, the emotional toll from everything that had happened in China had left her mentally and physically drained. She didn't want to start working right away, so she decided to spend some time exploring and unwinding. In the following days, she attended a service at St. Miriam's church. The morning bells and the solemn expressions on everyone's faces brought her an indescribable inner peace. She also joined a local tour group to visit the Art Gallery of New South Wales. As she looked at the vivid colors in the paintings, Luciana saw a different side of the world. She later went to a performance of Cinderella at the Sydney Opera House. Even though it was a familiar fairy tale, the moving performance brought her to tears. In the Blue Mountains National Park, Luciana breathed in the incredibly fresh air, admired the emerald green lakes, and even fed seagulls at the beach. She woke up early one morning at 6 and took a boat out from Port Stephens to go whale watching. A massive blue whale leapt from the sea right in front of her, its tail slicing the air and sending a cascade of glistening water droplets into the sky, like a breathtaking masterpiece of nature. The misty spray landed on Luciana's face and body. That moment overwhelmed her. The cool sensation jolted her awake in the best way. She suddenly realized how vast the world was, how much beauty there still was waiting for her. For the first time, Luciana truly understood. She had spent all those years trapped in Victor's orbit and had nearly lost herself. In that moment, Luciana completely let go of the one-sided love that began in deceit. In the days that followed, she had a stroke of luck. She met a foreign girl who was remarkably in sync with her. It started with a brief exchange on a cruise, but they quickly realized they had a lot in common. Over lunch in a sun-drenched French restaurant, the girl, named Miriam, was surprised by Luciana's unique insights into wine. She enthusiastically invited Luciana to work at her family's vineyard. Luciana was caught off guard. Though she had indeed studied viticulture and oenology in university and had some professional knowledge, she hadn't worked since graduating. That made her hesitant. Could she really handle the job? But Miriam noticed her doubt and said sincerely, "Lucy, your ideas about wine tasting really opened my eyes. I don't think anyone could be more suited for this job than you. Hey, sweetheart, don't worry so much. I'll help you. Believe in yourself." Miriam even cheered her on, encouraging her to have faith in herself. Looking at Miriam's smiling, supportive face, Luciana felt deeply moved. She thanked her sincerely and, with great determination, accepted the job offer. Chapter 14. At that moment, Victor was being wheeled out of the emergency room. Seeing there were no family members nearby, the doctor gave the assistant detailed instructions. His surgery just ended. Please avoid anything that might cause strong emotional stimulation. The assistant nodded repeatedly, though his hands held a folder containing the divorce papers, the abortion report, and the divorce certificate, his expression filled with helpless sorrow. What was this couple even doing? The boss had donated a kidney to his first love. And the wife? She went even further. She aborted the child and disappeared without a trace. The assistant felt a massive headache coming on. It was too late for regrets. All he could do now was hurry and track down her whereabouts. In the hospital room, Victor woke up. As he regained consciousness, the contents of that box came flooding back to him. He still couldn't believe it. He stared at the ceiling, dazed, as if caught in a dream. Luciana hadn't just disappeared, she had divorced him. And worse, she had cruelly aborted their child. The very thought of it sent a wave of anxiety crashing over him. Someone! I want to go home. Startled, the assistant rushed in, seeing how determined Victor was to return home and look for Luciana. He didn't dare object. He quickly helped him pack up while constantly trying to keep him calm, terrified that he might become more emotionally unstable. Eventually, Victor returned home with the assistant's help. But the moment he stepped inside and saw the once full house now riddled with empty spaces, an overwhelming emptiness gripped his heart. Everything connected to Luciana was gone. Even the baby items they had bought together, gone. Back at the hospital, Victor had refused to accept it. He thought Luciana still loved him, that she was just angry, that she'd never truly leave him. But the reality of this hollow, empty home told him otherwise. He had been wrong, completely wrong. Luciana was really gone. She had thrown away everything he had given her, including their child. And, of course, she had thrown him away too. Victor sat in silence for a long time on the sofa, his eyes vacant. He had never felt the house this unfamiliar, this cold. Young master, I've asked around with her family, but they haven't heard from her, the assistant reported. Watching Victor's expression carefully, he asked, should I keep looking? Victor gave a bitter, sarcastic laugh, his chest still full of unspoken anger. No need. Let her disappear. Then, after all, he didn't love her anyway. But on the way back to the hospital, a hollow ache settled deep in Victor's chest. As if someone had ripped something out of him, his thoughts were a tangled mess, impossible to unravel. He looked out over the city, and memories of Luciana came rushing back, like a thick fog enveloping his heart, hazy, but painfully vivid. After a moment of hesitation, Victor finally turned to his assistant. Keep looking for Luciana, and as he said it, he seemed to breathe just a little easier. Staring at his reflection in the window, Victor couldn't even tell what he was feeling anymore. He had always told himself, she was just a substitute. He had always believed his heart belonged to Zoe. So why did Luciana's disappearance hurt so much? He didn't know. He only knew that not searching for her left a weight on his chest, suffocating him. Maybe it was because they had been married for 2 full years. Maybe it was because Luciana was Zoe's niece. If something happened to her, he wouldn't know how to explain it to Zoe. Maybe that was why. Yes, that had to be why. Chapter 15. At the vineyard. Even Luciana herself hadn't expected things to go so smoothly. Not only had she taken on an important role as a mixologist, but she had also connected with many local winemaking experts. She had even learned how to cook some beautifully crafted and intricate dishes. In her free time, Luciana would go shopping with Miriam. With Miriam's guidance, Luciana not only earned a significantly higher salary but also became increasingly fluent and confident in English. The warm-hearted landlady who had welcomed her early on continued to invite her to parties, sometimes even dropping off small dishes just for Luciana. In return, Luciana prepared delicious Oriental cuisine and local dishes, inviting the landlady's family over as guests. She had become more radiant and confident than ever before. When talking about her recent experiences, Luciana felt a genuine sense of peace and self-assurance. And when recounting funny moments, she often found herself laughing without restraint. The joy that surrounded her was unmistakable. The landlady even said Luciana seemed like a whole new person, showering her with compliments. Only then did Luciana realize she had already been in this unfamiliar country for about a month. It was the first time in her life that time had flown by so quickly, and every day had been filled with happiness. Back then, whenever she made the slightest mistake, Victor would inevitably scold her. But here, what she heard most often was, "It's okay." These past few days, Miriam's older brother was scheduled to visit, and the entire family had been preparing for it 3 days in advance. Luciana was deeply curious about him. Their first meeting turned out to be unexpectedly amusing. Luciana was in the vineyard tasting wines, each bottle in front of her bearing a unique name. She was carefully savoring each one, jotting down tasting notes, when suddenly her pen stopped working. Frustrated, she shook it as she usually did, hoping to get it flowing again, but no ink splattered out. Just as she was about to get up to look for ink, she spotted a well-dressed man in a suit with neatly styled hair approaching. Strangely, there were ink stains on his face, little black splashes blooming like inky flowers across his skin. Luciana couldn't help herself, she laughed out loud at the sight. But the man didn't seem embarrassed. Instead, he laughed along with her. Judging by his elegant appearance and sharp suit, Luciana assumed he must be the wine expert Miriam had mentioned. Hurriedly, she wet a tissue and handed it to him, apologizing sincerely. His eyes were a light shade of brown, almost like the color of the salt lake Luciana had seen not long ago, uniquely beautiful. Unexpectedly, the man took the tissue, and instead of thanking her, asked, "What's your name? Can I pursue you?" The straightforwardness of the question instantly made Luciana blush. She was caught off guard. Then the man introduced himself. His name was Benjamin, and he was Miriam's older brother. So this was the man Luciana had been hearing about for 3 days. And he stood right in front of her, saying he had fallen for her at first sight and wanted to court her. At that moment, Luciana felt like she was walking on clouds, completely unsure how to respond. The man was tall and handsome, with strong facial features and a high nose bridge, a classic good-looking foreigner. Luciana praised Benjamin in English and told him she worked at the vineyard as a mixologist. Sensing she was deliberately avoiding the topic of his affection, Benjamin didn't give up. Instead, he expressed his interest in her again. His open and honest feelings made Luciana's cheeks burn. She was at a loss for words, her fair face flushing a soft pink. Thankfully, Miriam entered just then, breaking the tension in the room. But the very next day, Benjamin was already waiting for Luciana at work, with a huge bouquet of flowers in hand. Chapter 16. Knowing she could no longer avoid it, Luciana took Benjamin to a quiet, secluded spot, determined to make things clear. "Benjamin, yes, I'm single now, but the truth is, there's no real possibility between us." Benjamin looked puzzled, his face full of confusion. "Why not? Why can't we just give it a try?" Seeing how persistent he was, Luciana could only patiently explain, "I've been married before. I have an ex-husband." Benjamin blinked, clearly still not understanding. He paused for a moment, waiting, but when Luciana didn't say anything more, he asked again, confused, "That's it? That's the only reason you're turning me down?" Luciana widened her eyes in disbelief. "That's not enough?" But Benjamin just smiled and replied, "What era do you think we're living in? If a beautiful girl like you had never been in a relationship, that's what would surprise me. I like you for who you are, regardless of what happened in your past." Luciana felt her heart tighten, as if someone had gently but firmly squeezed it. A warm sensation wrapped around her. She looked at this boy in front of her, smiling so earnestly, and her heart began to race uncontrollably. Then Benjamin, full of energy, simply skipped work and insisted on taking Luciana out for fun. Luciana thought Miriam wouldn't approve, but to her surprise, Miriam even pulled out some money from her pocket, handed it to Benjamin, and told him with a teasing, encouraging smile to take Luciana out and enjoy themselves. Luciana's cheeks flushed even more, though it was already late autumn. The sun was shining brightly. Unlike Victor, who had always treated dates like errand runs at the mall, Benjamin took Luciana to the seaside. The deep blue sea, paired with the salty breeze, lifted Luciana's dress into the air. Benjamin immediately took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders, wearing only a light shirt. His wavy brown hair swayed in the wind. His eyes were bright, and under the sunlight, they sparkled like polished blue gemstones. Luciana was momentarily dazed by the sight. Then Benjamin suddenly grabbed her hand and pulled her along the shore. running barefoot on the sand. The warm sand underfoot felt strange but wonderful. Benjamin led her right to the water's edge, where the wet sand met the crashing waves. He smiled at her, then let go of her hand and unbuttoned his shirt, tossing it onto the sand, revealing sun-kissed skin and a perfectly toned, muscular body, complete with a neat set of abs. Luciana blinked rapidly in surprise, instinctively about to turn away in embarrassment. But Benjamin gently held her arm. "Hold on to me." His warmth startled her, but she instinctively obeyed, placing her hand on his shoulder as he crouched down. The next thing she knew, he had taken hold of her foot. In a single motion, he slipped off her shoe and even her sock. "If you don't, it'll get soaked," Benjamin said seriously, his eyes focused and sincere. Startled, Luciana hurried to remove the other shoe herself. The moment her bare feet touched the soft sand, her eyes lit up with uncontrollable joy. The sensation was simply magical. Hand in hand, Benjamin and Luciana ran across the beach. The fierce wind whipped through her dress, only to vanish as quickly as it came, leaving her feeling light and free. Her body, moving with the wind, felt weightless. The running she had always hated now felt exhilarating, and for the first time, she wanted to do it again. This moment on the beach felt like a breakthrough. Luciana was finally unbound. She no longer cared about what others might think and broke into a run, laughing freely. Not far away, Benjamin watched her with a beaming smile, then playfully kicked up a spray of seawater that splashed all over her. The pink glow of the setting sun spilled over them both as they laughed, chased each other, and played. Their reflections etched in each other's eyes, glimmering in the air, dazzling like crystal. Chapter 17. A full month had passed since the surgery. Victor made a special trip to the hospital, determined to stay by Zoe's side until she was discharged. But Zoe soon noticed something. Luciana wasn't with him. "Where's Lucy?" she asked. Victor hesitated for a moment, then forced a smile onto his face. "She's pregnant. After all, it's not convenient for her to be out and about, so I didn't let her come." Zoe didn't question it and nodded. She motioned for Victor to sit down, then looked at him earnestly. "You need to live well with Lucy now, okay? Let the past go." Victor avoided her gaze but gave a soft mem, then helped her sit up gently. He peeled an apple with care, cutting it into small slices and feeding her one piece at a time. From then on, Victor visited every day. He brought nourishing medicinal dishes, black-bone chicken soup, and sat with Zoe to watch TV. Each evening, Zoe would send him off. "Go home. It's almost dinner time. I'm much better now. You can't just leave Lucy home alone." Over the next few days, Zoe noticed something. Victor never seemed eager to leave. Gradually, she started sensing something was off. Still, she didn't say anything. It had been so long since she'd felt this kind of peace and happiness. Then one weekend, Zoe saw a couple walking through the hospital cafeteria, hand in hand, the woman pregnant and glowing with joy. Seeing them, Zoe couldn't help but ask Victor the next time he came. "Victor, is something wrong with Lucy? Why hasn't she come to visit me? And your face looks worse every day. Has something happened?" Victor instinctively tried to deflect. "No, it's just that she's not well lately. Walking is difficult. But by now, Lucy should have at least called me. Don't you think?" The more she said it, the more suspicious she became. Her brows furrowed tightly. "Did you two have a fight?" The more she thought about it, the more certain she became. Her voice grew firmer. "What on earth is going on?" Victor still tried to avoid the question, but Zoe lost her patience. "Call Lucy right now." Cornered, Victor could only tell her the truth, that he and Luciana were already divorced. When she heard everything, Zoe's eyes immediately filled with sorrow and guilt. She clenched her fists and pounded the bed. "It's all my fault. I should never have come back. If I'd stayed overseas, none of this would have happened. It's all because of me." Then she quickly asked, "So where is Lucy now?" Victor sighed, rubbing his temples in frustration. "I found out she's in a city. She's safe. All of this is my fault. If not for me, she wouldn't have left." Zoe's furrowed brows and worried expression only made Victor feel worse. "It's all on me. None of it is your fault." But then, Victor gently placed his hand over hers. The heat of his touch made Zoe instinctively pull away. But Victor held on. Their eyes met, and Zoe's were filled with inner conflict. Zoe, I want to be with you. Zoe shook her head, struggling with herself. We can't be together. But Victor pulled her into his arms anyway. As she felt that familiar embrace, Zoe wavered. After a brief moment of struggle, she gave in and returned the hug. At the hospital, Victor would pull her into watching movies with him, tightly holding her hand in the dark. Whenever they watched horror films, he'd cover her eyes, just like he used to do in college. He took care of everything personally. He climbed 6 flights of stairs every day just to fetch the freshest, hottest water. He carefully tended the flowers he brought for her every day. Every evening, he pushed Zoe's wheelchair through the hospital garden, stopping occasionally to watch elderly men play chess under the setting sun. Under the golden light, they looked just like an ordinary couple. But Zoe began to notice Victor often spaced out, staring at pregnant women or lost in thought over random things. At first, she thought he was just adjusting, but today, she caught him staring blankly again, following his line of sight. She saw a couple eating cotton candy. One laughed joyfully. The other turned away in mock disgust. Victor remembered the first time he and Luciana went to the mall after getting married. He bought her 2 outfits, but she didn't seem excited. Finally, he gave in and bought her a big, sugary cotton candy. Luciana had lit up with joy, trying to get him to taste the overly sweet fluff. He'd refused, claiming he'd never buy cotton candy for her again. Luciana had pouted, but her eyes sparkled with delight as she ate it. Zoe thought he just wanted some cotton candy, so she teased, "What? Feeling like a kid again? Go buy one." Victor shook his head. Luciana liked that stuff, then quickly added, "I just suddenly remembered. That's all." Zoe noticed, but said nothing. That night, Zoe got up quietly but heard Victor, asleep beside her, mumbling, "Lucy, why did you leave?" His unconscious words froze Zoe for a moment. She looked at Victor sleeping under the moonlight and sighed. The cool night air gave her clarity. Zoe made up her mind. It was time to return to where she belonged, back to Paris. The next morning, she asked Victor to go pick up a relative. While he was gone, she signed the discharge papers and prepared to leave. She left a letter. When Victor returned to the hospital room with the relative, he found an empty bed and a letter placed on it. Realizing something was wrong, he quickly opened it. "Victor, is it possible that you've already fallen in love with Luciana? You just don't realize it yet? Have you noticed? You keep thinking about her. No one else can replace those memories. Victor, stop running from it. Go to a city, win Luciana back. As for me, it's time I began my own new life." Chapter 18. Victor stared at the letter in his hands, his eyes blank and distant. He looked at Zoe's handwriting, frozen in place for a long while. Did he really love Luciana? They had been together for 3 years. For 2 of those, they had been married, and they never once had a serious argument. They never missed an anniversary, never forgot a gift. In bed and in daily life, they were completely in sync. Like any couple, they knew each other's little quirks and habits. Victor knew that Luciana was all bark and no bite. He knew she couldn't sleep without the light on. It made her feel safe. He knew she loved seafood but disliked shrimp. He could interpret every unconscious movement she made, though sometimes he pretended not to notice. Too lazy to react. And Luciana never blamed him for that. She would massage his shoulders, prepare his bath. During those days, Victor always felt like time flew by too fast. He could still remember the day he proposed to her. The weather had been miserable, gray, rainy. Victor hesitated for a moment, wondering if such a gloomy day was really the right time to propose. But when Luciana unexpectedly stumbled upon the spot he had prepared, her face lit up. Her eyes sparkled as if touched by sunlight. At that moment, Victor didn't hesitate any longer. The place had only been decorated simply. She hadn't even worn a nice dress, nor done her makeup. Still, she had thrown her arms around him with joy, even though she teasingly scolded. No warning at all. "I didn't even have time to prepare." But then she leaned in, whispered sweetly in his ear, "I accept." Victor remembered lifting her into his arms and spinning her 3 times in place. He remembered how they rode bicycles together across a bridge over the sea. shouting into the wind that they'd be together forever. It all felt like it had happened just yesterday. Then they got married. They planned the wedding together. They stressed out together over how to decorate their new home. They bickered playfully during countless sunsets. Luciana would cook for him, though at first, every dish came out too salty. But over time, each meal improved. She'd take their parents to the market, and she even learned acupuncture and massage just for them. She always faced everything with a smile, like nothing in the world could bring her down. And now, all those versions of Luciana rushed back into Victor's mind, like floodgates had burst open. The Luciana who was content with just a cotton candy. The one who would act spoiled whenever he teased her. The one who would pout when she felt wronged. The one who always smiled at him, looking for comfort. So many Lucianas he had known. And now, it felt like he might never see any of them again. Just the thought of it shattered something deep inside him. It felt as if someone had ripped a piece of his soul away. The hollow ache and anguish made him tremble. Without wasting another second, he told his assistant to book him the earliest possible flight to a city. He had made up his mind. He was going to apologize. He was going to confess. He was going to win Luciana back. Chapter 19. Victor had finally arrived in a city. He found Luciana at the vineyard where she worked. She was standing quietly at the entrance of the wine cellar, a brown work notebook in hand. Unlike back home, her hair had grown longer, now softly curled and dyed a warm brown. Dressed neatly in a well-ironed work uniform, she was calmly inspecting the cellar stock. The focused look on her face was something Victor had never seen before. Her eyes were calm, her expression composed. She was writing notes in her book, appearing confident and efficient. In that instant, seeing Luciana again, Victor realized just how much he had missed her. Suddenly, he felt like an intruder, someone who might disturb the peaceful life she had built. It seemed as though just one step forward would shatter the quiet calm surrounding her. But he knew that if he didn't do this, he would regret it forever. Lucy. I'm here to apologize. The moment Luciana saw Victor, her expression changed. Without a word, she turned to leave. Victor rushed forward, his trembling hand grabbing her arm. He held on desperately, as if she might vanish from his world again the second he let go. More than anything, he needed to feel that she was real, here, in front of him. He still couldn't fully believe it. I don't accept, Luciana said coldly. She reached down and began prying his fingers off her arm, one by one. As she did, Victor's eyes lingered greedily on her face, trying to memorize every detail. She looked thinner, but healthier, her skin glowing. Even the little mole near her eyelid looked heartbreakingly familiar and beautiful. But the expression on her face was full of panic and struggle. As he felt his fingers being peeled away, an overwhelming sense of dread surged through Victor like a punch to the head. His voice cracked, desperate and urgent. Lucy, just give me a chance, please. At that moment, the landlady, who lived just next door, stepped out, holding a large watering can, about to tend to her flowers. The vineyard was nearby, and Luciana was standing outside. The landlady spotted her being harassed by a strange man and immediately rushed over, yelling, Lucy, I'm here. Despite her large build, she charged straight toward Victor and rammed into him with her shoulder. Victor stumbled backward in pain, nearly falling, but caught his balance just in time. Who are you? If you don't stop pestering her, I'll beat you so bad even your own mother won't recognize you. The landlady waved the watering can like a weapon, fierce and protective like a hen guarding her chick. I'm Luciana's husband. But Luciana quickly corrected him, grabbing the landlady's arm. Ex-husband. We've been divorced for a while now. The landlady didn't know the full story, but when she looked at Luciana's terrified expression, she instantly understood. Luciana clearly didn't want this man anywhere near her. Without hesitation, she raised the heavy watering can and took another swing at Victor. He hadn't expected the woman to attack him so fiercely. Caught off guard, the blow landed hard on his arm, the pain shooting through him and forcing him to retreat again and again. It wasn't a light plastic can, this was a large metal one filled with water. A few more hits like that and Victor would be covered in bruises. Unable to approach, he shouted from a distance, Lucy, I came just to apologize. But before he could finish, the landlady came at him again, swinging the can. Victor had no choice but to back away and run. shielding himself, watching Victor flee, glancing back with every step. Clearly reluctant to leave, Luciana felt an overwhelming weight press down on her chest. Her breath hitched, a flood of emotion tightening around her throat. Just seeing Victor again made her feel nervous, lost, overwhelmed. Grabbing the landlady's sleeve, she thanked her, voice quiet. The landlady, noticing Luciana's expression, patted her hand comfortingly and said with conviction, "Don't be afraid. If he comes again, I'll beat him again." Luciana nodded, touched, as she quickly blinked away the glimmer in her eyes. Yes, she wasn't the same Luciana anymore. She was no longer alone. Meanwhile, Victor stood at a distance, watching their silhouettes shrink into two tiny black dots before disappearing from view altogether. Lucy was just too angry. She won't give up on me. That's what he told himself as he pulled out his phone to book a hotel nearby. Luciana loves me too much to let go completely. He kept repeating the thought, trying to calm himself, trying to believe. Chapter 20. When Luciana entered the landlady's room, she told her everything that had happened. The golden glow of sunset poured through the window. As the landlady listened, her eyes filled with deep compassion and tenderness. She stood up and wrapped Luciana in a warm hug, gently patting her back, comforting her softly. "Lucy, don't be sad. It's all in the past now." Luciana had been trying hard not to cry, but in that comforting embrace, her eyes welled up with unexpected bitterness. The tears she had been holding back came flooding out uncontrollably. All the fear and sorrow that had built up in her chest suddenly burst forth. They streamed down her cheeks, faster and faster. The landlady continued to comfort her, patting her back gently and warmly. How could she not feel hurt? After 3 years of being together, every single day had been filled with love. They had gone through so much together. The memories were still so vivid, etched deep into her heart, so much so that even the slightest touch brought them back like a sandstorm, hitting her without mercy. She had given up on chasing her own dreams without hesitation, marrying him right after graduating, full of hope for a beautiful future, only to discover that all those years had been a lie. From the very beginning, she had only been a substitute. Even the child she had longed for was nothing more than a token in his so-called love for another woman. Everything she had given, everything she had done, for Victor, it had all been in Zoe's name. Why had he made her feel all of that, only to leave her with nothing? She didn't know how long she cried. When she finally opened her eyes, she saw the room bathed in the warm hues of the setting sun. The soft golden light filled her vision with clarity and warmth. Her tears began to dry without her noticing. All the heavy emotions in her chest felt as if they were being washed away by the sunlight, slowly dissipating. The next day, Luciana returned to work as usual, but to her surprise, Victor was already waiting at the vineyard. He had even specifically requested that she be the one to guide him. Luciana couldn't refuse a guest's request, so she had no choice but to show him around and explain the grounds. Being so close to her made Victor notice something new. Luciana's knowledge about wine was impressive. He was struck by a strange sense of awe and unfamiliarity. "How do you know so much about wine?" he asked. Luciana replied coolly, "I studied viticulture and enology in university." Her cold, detached tone hit Victor like a punch to the gut. He was stunned. 3 years together, and he hadn't known that at all? A bitter melancholy crept into his heart. He couldn't believe how little he truly knew her. Finally, it was the end of Luciana's shift. As she finished handing off her responsibilities, she saw Victor waiting for her at the vineyard gate. She had only taken a few steps when he walked over and offered to take her to dinner. Luciana took 2 steps back and replied firmly, "I already have plans." But Victor still grabbed her arm. She was starting to feel irritated, thinking of how to shake him off, when she saw Miriam and Benjamin walking toward her. Instinctively, she looked at Benjamin. Miriam called out loudly, "Lucy!" Victor, completely oblivious, continued speaking, still gripping her tightly, his tone pleading, "Lucy, let's just have a meal. We need to talk everything through, please." Miriam, visibly annoyed, stepped in and pulled Luciana behind her protectively. Benjamin, tall and imposing, stepped up beside them, his icy gaze locked onto Victor, sharp and forceful as if cutting through him. "I've never met such a shameless man," he said, standing firmly between them. Victor looked up at Benjamin and faltered a little but still insisted, I'm her husband. I just want to talk to her. This is between us. Please step aside. Benjamin glanced at Luciana, who shook her head, understanding immediately. He placed a hand on Victor's shoulder, a provocative smirk on his face. Ex-husband, right? Let me give you a piece of advice. Know your place. Lucy doesn't want to see you. Isn't it humiliating to keep pestering her like this? His words were sharp as blades. Victor's face turned pale. For a moment, he didn't know how to respond. All he could do was call out, Luciana, but she didn't even look back. Miriam had already taken her away. As they walked off, Miriam leaned toward Luciana and whispered with a grin, let the men fight their own battles. Us ladies have dinner to enjoy. Luciana hesitated, glancing back, but Miriam gently squeezed her hand. If my brother can't even handle that guy, then he doesn't deserve you. Luciana couldn't help but laugh. That playful comment from Miriam dissolved the last bit of gloom in her heart. Chapter 21. Who the hell are you? Why do you keep interfering in our business? Victor, still fuming after being blocked, glared at Benjamin, itching to chase after Luciana. But Benjamin remained calm and composed. He patted Victor's shoulder casually, his expression relaxed and almost smug. I'm Lucy's suitor. You should probably head home now. She's mine. Victor hadn't expected that answer. His expression shifted instantly as he studied the foreign man in front of him. From his clothing to his build, this guy had it all, great proportions. Lean muscles peeking through his shirt, definitely not someone to take lightly. Luciana won't like you, Victor said firmly, convinced that Luciana could only be into someone like him. Oh really? So she'd pass on someone like me and choose an old man like you? Victor's eyes widened. Stunned. Old man? Yes. He was 10 years older than Luciana and certainly older than this guy. But Victor prided himself on his appearance. He always dressed impeccably, kept himself well-groomed. He thought he aged like fine wine. I exude mature masculine charm. What would a kid like you understand? Lucy likes men like me. Benjamin ignored him completely and calmly waved toward the winery staff. Victor barely had time to react before two men came over, each grabbing an arm, and with practiced ease, hauled him out of the estate. If you show up again, I'll throw you out again. This is my home now. Lucy's too. With that, the gate slammed shut in Victor's face. He banged on the door in frustration, but there was no response. Eventually, with a final frustrated kick, he had no choice but to walk away. Meanwhile, Benjamin, cool as ever, pulled up to the restaurant in a convertible. The moment his tall figure entered, Luciana looked up, worry flickering in her eyes. Benjamin's got it under control, Miriam said confidently. Benjamin noticed Luciana's concern and sat down beside her, his face lit with a bright smile. His eyes, full of warmth, locked onto her. Handling problems for the one you love is part of being a good suitor, he said smoothly. That handsome face so close, coupled with such direct affection, made Luciana blush uncontrollably. Her heart pounded, and she had to look away. Benjamin, however, seemed content just admiring her. His gaze never wavered, full of sincere adoration. Miriam couldn't help but laugh. Benjamin's completely gone for you, she teased. From the moment he walked in, his eyes haven't left you. He didn't even greet me, his own sister. Luciana, flustered, didn't know how to respond. She just kept eating, pretending to be too focused on her food to answer. Benjamin shot Miriam a warning look, silently telling her to stop. But Miriam just giggled into her spoon, clearly enjoying herself. After dinner, Miriam conveniently claimed she had to attend a party, leaving Benjamin to naturally offer to take Luciana home. In the car, Benjamin even started singing for her. His voice was clear and distinct, lazy and comforting, and before she knew it, Luciana was softly humming along too. He played her a playlist of his favorite songs, each one pleasant and melodic. They chatted easily, the conversation flowing with every tune. Luciana brought up things that had been on her mind lately, and Benjamin always had a fresh, unexpected perspective. When she mentioned the winery needed a new brand ambassador, Benjamin said, "You're the perfect candidate." When she talked about how the landlady's flowers were thriving and she wanted to buy her own but didn't know what kind to start with, Benjamin said, "You don't have to worry, no matter what you pick. With your care, They'll grow beautiful, just like you. Every word from him was a heartfelt affirmation, never cheesy, never exaggerated. His voice was sincere, his eyes unwavering. Whenever their eyes met, Luciana found herself drawn in by their depth, and each time, she blushed harder. They stopped the car a short walk away from Luciana's place, choosing to stroll side by side in the soft glow of street lamps. Under the warm orange lights, their silhouettes were close, their conversation full of laughter. Luciana wore a gentle smile the entire time, her eyes frequently sneaking glances at Benjamin. Not far away, hidden in the shadows, Victor stood watching, his heart twisted with jealousy, his fists clenched tightly. He had never seen Luciana smile like that with him. Chapter 22. Victor stepped out from the shadows and blocked Luciana's path. Benjamin, caught off guard, immediately stepped forward to protect her, but Luciana gently reached out and grabbed his arm, her voice soft but firm. Benjamin, this can't go on like this. Let me handle it, okay? Benjamin hesitated, then nodded, though he insisted on waiting outside. Luciana felt a wave of warmth wash over her. His silent support gave her the strength she needed to face what was coming. She looked Victor in the eyes and spoke clearly. Let's talk. Victor followed her into her small home and took a seat by the window. Luciana instinctively glanced outside and saw Benjamin standing quietly, gazing down at the soil beneath his feet, deep in thought. Even now, he was listening, caring. The sight made Victor feel even more unsettled. I thought you'd already ended up with Zoe. Luciana began directly. Her tone was calm, but her words cut deep. If I was just a stand-in for her, and you love her so much you'd donate a kidney, why not be with her? The lightness in her voice made Victor feel completely exposed. He didn't know how to respond. Luciana stood up, poured him a glass of water, and glanced once more at Benjamin. He hadn't moved, still thoughtful, still waiting. He was holding on to every word she had said. Victor finally mustered his courage and spoke with rare sincerity. Lucy, I'm sorry, truly, but after you left, I realized nothing felt right anymore. I saw it clearly. I love you. Luciana blinked in surprise. She hadn't expected this confession, and for a moment, she looked at him with doubt. Victor followed her gaze to the window and added quickly, please, just give me one chance. I'll start over. I'll chase you again, properly. This time, we had 2 great years, didn't we? Luciana shook her head. She took a sip of water and said calmly, it's too late. I don't love you anymore. I agreed to meet today just to bring closure, for both of us. Victor, can you leave a city for good? Please stay out of my life. Your presence is disruptive now. Victor, unwilling to give up, pointed toward the window, voice rising. Is it because of him? That foreign guy? That's why you won't take me back. Luciana's face turned cold, her tone laced with mockery. You give yourself too much credit. Even without him, I wouldn't go back to you. But yes, he's a good man. I like being with him, and I plan to give us a try. Victor's face drained of color. As he watched Luciana, he could see that every thought in her mind was focused on Benjamin. The bitterness inside him felt like hot tea turned to ice, slowly sinking into his gut. He knew, this time, there truly was no going back. Eyes don't lie. From beginning to end, Luciana's gaze toward him was full of disdain and mockery. But when she looked at Benjamin, there was light in her eyes. Victor opened his mouth, still hoping to salvage something. Anything. But before he could finish, Luciana pulled out her phone and calmly dialed Benjamin. Benjamin, I've said everything I needed to. You can come in. It was a clear, unapologetic dismissal. Whatever warmth Victor had clung to was now fully extinguished. His pride choked off his words. He rushed out the door, returned to his hotel, hastily packed his things, and headed straight to the airport. As he waited at his gate, he sat slouched, exhausted. He knew with piercing clarity, there would never be another chance with Luciana, and it was all his fault. The thought of Benjamin and Luciana, possibly smiling at each other right now, whispering sweet words, was a boulder on his chest, suffocating him. Victor made his decision. He would abandon everything and go home. Chapter 23. After returning to his home country, Victor buried himself in work. He was always the first to arrive at the office and the last to leave. But once he got home, He would drink himself into a stupor, using alcohol to numb the gaping void in his heart. Every morning, his assistant would show up at his place, cleaning up the mess from the night before. Seeing Victor passed out on the couch, slurring Luciana's name in his sleep, the assistant couldn't help but sigh deeply. If only he'd realized earlier. Now, he brought this on himself. Meanwhile, Luciana stood in a garden of falling petals. She wore a white and sky blue patchwork dress, her head slightly bowed. In front of her, Benjamin gently placed a handmade lily hairpin in her hair. Bathed in warm sunlight, Benjamin once again confessed, "The moment I saw you, I knew you were the most beautiful girl I had ever met. That will never change. I truly like you. Lucy, can we move forward and become something more, be together?" Luciana had heard his confessions many times. Each one was sincere, and she had felt them deeply. Over the past days, she had already made up her mind. Under the golden sun, the lily in her hair seemed to glow with brilliance, and warmth filled her heart. She shyly took Benjamin's hand and gave a small, bashful nod. The landlady's family and Miriam, who had been watching from nearby, broke into cheers. They circled around the new couple, singing joyfully. Benjamin pulled Luciana into a hug without hesitation. Blush pink petals fell like rain, ushering in a new chapter in their lives. Luciana felt an overwhelming sense of peace. Thank goodness I still had the courage to start again. 3 years had passed in a flash. At the vineyard, a new wine co-developed by Luciana was released, its name, Rebirth. The moment it launched, it sold out immediately. And the largest buyer? Victor. He had been following the product's release and reserved every bottle available. When the wine arrived, he opened one instantly. Sipping it, he let himself be swallowed by memories of Luciana, her laughter, her voice, the image of her standing before him with her pregnant belly. He kept remembering, laughing and crying in turns, downing bottle after bottle. If only there hadn't been so many lies. Would they be holding their child now? Sitting in this silent home, sharing this deep, rich wine? Would they have grown old together? As that thought took hold, a sudden sharp pain flared in his abdomen. His face turned pale. Then he vomited a mouthful of deep red blood. In the next moment, Victor collapsed unconscious. His assistant arrived later to find him passed out and rushed him to the hospital. The diagnosis was grim, late-stage liver cancer. Back in a city, Benjamin was grumbling as he hugged Luciana tightly. "That guy, that bastard bought all your wine. I swear, I nearly flew over just to punch him." Luciana chuckled, ready to calm him down. But Benjamin switched gears, suddenly smug. "Good thing I saved the one bottle we made together. There's only one in the world. He could drink 10 cases and it still wouldn't compare." Luciana laughed helplessly and gently pushed the clingy man away. "How is he getting more childish now that we're together?" she thought, but the smile on her face lingered, soft and unwavering, as she gazed at Benjamin. Before evening arrived, Benjamin had already left for work. Much to Luciana's disappointment, she'd planned to spend the day off watching TV with him. But right at dinner time, Benjamin returned, declaring they were going out to eat. He handed her a beautiful pink and white princess dress and even helped braid her hair. Luciana assumed they were meeting someone important and got a bit nervous. But Benjamin just smiled mysteriously and wouldn't tell her a thing. When they finally arrived at the venue, she was stunned. It was her own home. Benjamin took her hand and led her inside. The house had been transformed, romantic lighting, fairy lights, and a wall filled with photos. Every corner was bursting with warmth and surprises. And most importantly, the landlady's family, Miriam, and Luciana's co-workers were all there. "Lucy, I haven't slept for days, planning all this," Benjamin said. "Miriam even made fun of me." Then, right in front of everyone, Benjamin dropped to one knee. From his white suit, he pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a stunning diamond ring, surrounded by intricate lily designs. "Lucy, will you marry me?" In the midst of cheers and applause, Luciana felt like she was floating among the clouds. She accepted the ring with joyful tears and, surrounded by friends and love, said yes to Benjamin. Chapter 24. News of Victor's late-stage liver cancer spread quickly. Zoe rushed back from Paris, and when she saw the unconscious Victor still murmuring Luciana's name in his sleep, everything suddenly became clear. Without hesitation, she called Luciana. Victor is in the final stages. He doesn't have much time left. He keeps calling for you. Could you come back? Just this once? At least be there to accompany him on the last stretch of his life. Luciana was stunned. Her mind felt like it had been thrown into a haze. Disoriented. As if hearing about a distant stranger's fate, she glanced over at Benjamin and his family, who were joyfully helping her pick a wedding dress. In that moment, she already knew her answer. Clutching her phone, Luciana replied firmly, "I'm not going back." Zoe hadn't expected her to be so resolute. Her voice filled with disbelief. "How can you be so heartless? You were husband and wife. He's like this because of you." Luciana ended the call. She had no intention of wasting another word on Zoe. Benjamin, noticing her slight change in mood, gently took her hand. "Who was it? Did something happen?" Luciana smiled, lacing her fingers through his. "Someone unimportant." Just then, Miriam chimed in loudly from across the room, holding a necklace in her hands. "Hey, you too! Come look, doesn't this one look better? It's delicate and cute. Way better than the one Mom picked. It's way too old-fashioned." Luciana laughed, tugging Benjamin along. "Let me see." At that same moment, Victor struggled to breathe, the sound ragged and uneven. He knew clearly, he was about to die. The room around him blurred through tears and pain. He could make out his assistant, face heavy with sorrow, and Zoe weeping uncontrollably beside him. His eyelids grew heavy. Then, slowly, he closed them. In his mind, a dream played out vividly. Luciana wasn't gone, they were still married. She stood a short distance away, scolding him. "Why don't you ever put your slippers away? I'm pregnant, and I still have to tidy up after you." He laughed and walked over, placing the slippers neatly, then guided Luciana to the sofa, gently helping her sit down. He leaned over, placing an ear on her belly, listening. The little heartbeat echoed like fireworks in his chest. His eyes lit up with joy. Luciana smiled too and patted his head. "If it's a girl, what should we name her?" Victor had thought seriously. "How about son Lucy?" Luciana had wrinkled her nose in playful disgust. "That's awful." Later, he waited outside the delivery room. Their daughter was born, a wrinkled little bundle who soon learned to smile. Luciana named her Emma Sun. Emma Sun grew up quickly, learned to walk early, adored pink princess dresses, hated vegetables, and loved holding Victor's hand wherever they went. She called Victor her first word, but when she spoke clearly, it was Mama. On weekends, the three of them would stroll together in the plaza downstairs. Under their guidance, Emma even learned to ride a bike. People who passed by often complimented her, saying she looked like Luciana and would grow up to be a beauty. And little Emma would proudly declare, "My daddy is handsome too." Bathed in the setting sun, they looked like the perfect family, walking together toward the horizon. Victor's lips curled into a peaceful smile, then his heart stopped beating. The jagged lines on the heart monitor flattened into silence. At that very moment, Luciana stood tall beneath the arched aisle of a church, a trail of white silk sweeping behind her. She wore a pure white wedding gown, lily bouquet in hand, walking step by step toward Benjamin. Outside, white doves soared into the sky, circling the chapel, their wings fluttering like a chorus of blessings from the heavens. Luciana placed her hand into Benjamin's, full of quiet certainty. She knew the days ahead would be filled with joy. From this moment on, they would walk through life hand in hand, content to watch the clouds drift by, together.